Hey folks, this is Jason Lewis, the producer of the From the Shadows podcast. I just want to remind you about our website, fromtheshadowspodcast.com. We have a Facebook page. We would appreciate it if you like and follow. Also, join our discussion group on Facebook called After the Shadows. We have a Twitter feed. Please follow us on Twitter. It can be found with @podcast_from. Follow us on Instagram at From the Shadows Podcast. We have a YouTube channel. Go to the search bar at YouTube and put From the Shadows Podcast, and please subscribe to that channel. We are also on the Odyssey Radio Network, and we can be found there at odyssey1.com. We're still on the traditional podcatchers that everybody loves to listen to us on. We get a lot of feedback, so please rate the podcast and communicate with whether you're on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, or Google Podcasts. We're there, and we appreciate it when you leave comments for us. Well, that's all I have for you right now, folks, and thanks for being a part of the From the Shadows podcast family. So with that being said, let's get this episode started. Now I'm going to turn you over to your host, Shanegrove.
Hey everyone, it's Shanegrove, host of the From the Shadows podcast. We are putting together a Patreon page for From the Shadows podcast listeners. And what a Patreon page is there's different levels of patronage that you guys can sign up for if you choose to. What it does is it helps us with a little bit of support from you guys. Keep doing what we're doing, buy some new equipment, make sure that we can keep everything running and sounding good or much better, let's hope. But with that, there's lots of unique gifts and rewards and merchandise that's available by being a Patreon, including a special episode each month by the judge, another special episode every month by theozarkhowler, and at least one listener episode where we take a story from one of our listeners and share it with everybody. So we will have the information out about that on our Facebook pages, After the Shadows, and the From the Shadows podcast page, as well as our Instagram account. We'll tell everybody how they can find that and become a Patreon of the show. And we certainly appreciate all the support our listeners have given us.
Hey, so welcome everybody to this post-election midweek howl. Hopefully everybody's tuning in because they need a little fun, a little laughter after whatever went on yesterday with the election, because at this time we're recording this, we don't know what happened. But so hopefully we can bring some levity to whatever the national situation is. But hey, Jason, before we get started, I had some listeners want to know what it is your new job was going to be with the judge up at the courthouse. I guess we didn't explain it. And I'll tell you what, our listeners, man, if we don't finish a story, they want to know. They want to know what's going on. So Jason, for everybody out there, that inquiring minds want to know, what you want to give them a quick synopsis of what your new job's going to be?
Well, the parameters of all my duties are not quite defined yet, but let's just say I'll be involved with doing probation work with some of the former inmates, as well as some computer technical coordinator position type work. And right now, that's about all we have that's defined, but it'll be pretty interesting.
Well, that sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
I'm sure. Hey, I'm sure there's some fine print there that says "and other duties as prescribed" or as directed or something. So you got to do whatever he tells you.
We will go into that
at the judge's discretion.
Right.
Well, you got to have main duties, don't you?
Oh, I'm sure he'll give you a lot of them. You know, I'm sure. I tell you, I'm sure. I've spent a lot of time in courthouses back in the old days, and yeah, some of them judges back in the old days. Yeah, you'd be picking up laundry and picking this up and doing that.
Oh gosh!
What? Right? They would. Whatever.
Is this like what was that? The inmates. Hey, take these guys out. I got some yard work to do. This is
almost not quite that bad, but yeah, the old time, especially the old time bailiffs that I knew when I was a kid coming on, they were kind of, and you know what? They didn't. Most of them were veterans, right? So Korea, the older guys had been in Korea, or that, you know, back when they drafted kids in the 50s.
Yeah.
And then a lot of them in the 60s, and they looked at the judge almost like the general or the colonel, and you know, they did what they were told, and along with that, they had a lot of leeway to do nothing a lot of the time. Does that make sense? I don't know how else to say it, but
it's when duty calls, right?
Yes. So when there wasn't anything going on, they could sit around and drink coffee, and they except for, you know, and I don't know how to get off on this tangent, but I'm thinking of a couple of them that were old. One was a retired military Army guy, and the other one was a retired state trooper that worked until his 60th birthday, which is mandatory retirement age, and then went to work up there as a bailiff. And when I knew these guys, they were both in their 70s. So they had been retired and at the courthouse for 20 plus years in a very, how would I put it, tame way, right? So the criminals we have today are different than the criminals we had 30 or 40 years ago. And I know that sounds goofy, okay?
Yeah.
But it's true. So these guys had sat in a courthouse environment for 25 years where everybody listened to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the best way I can say it. So I was with my FTO, and we were sitting on the side of a pretty major state highway, and we heard the plectron for the ambulance tone, what they call tone out. You know what I'm talking about? Guys that hear the fire department know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They used to do these tones, plectron tones. I don't know if they do it now with satellites like they used to, but anyway. Anyway, they were dispatching the ambulance and fire to the state route Z. It was like approximately 2 miles north of 22 U.S. Missouri 22 is the highway, and we were sitting at the intersection of 22 and Z. So we were 2 miles from this crash. So, of course, I put my car in gear, and my FTO was riding with me, and so we get up there, and there's nobody around, and it's a car upside down. And I think it was a citation. Remember the citation? I got 2 or 3 citation stories.
Listen, don't you remember?
Yeah, because the radio's sideways in it. Remember, the radio was sideways in it.
Yeah, that's the car the ambulance hit. The ambulance hit me in.
You're right. And you know what's weird, and not to go off, because I have trouble keeping track. But the only reason why I knew a citation, the radio was crooked in there.
Oh yeah.
What was it? Was it perpendicular? What was the deal with the radio?
It went up and down.
Yeah,
it was up and down, and like all I had in our Chevy Citation, it was only an AM radio. There was no FM radio. There was no 8-track. There was nothing. And
I have a very short attention span, like a kid or a dog. And when which is the reason why I went from bailiffs to this story, I'm going to tell you the citation story, because I think some of the audience will at least laugh a little bit about it. When I was a senior in high school, I started a relationship with a girl at the big high school. I went to the little high school. At that time, it was in rural. My high school was little, but 6 miles away. So in my senior class, there was 67 kids. Literally 6 miles away was a high school with 660. Because the old school line, the way it was, because of the river, for 50 years, there was no bridges or whatever. So you had the little school on the other side of the river. And does that make sense? I know it sounds goofy, but by the time I was in high school, you had the little school that everybody wants to go to now, and then the big school. So I met a girl, and anyhow, I was in her driveway talking to her when her boyfriend stopped by. And he was a big football player at the big school. And when I say big football, these guys were, in '89, these guys were undefeated 5A. So they were the biggest high school in the state of Missouri, and they were undefeated in the football. So they had some
Oh yeah.
they had some badasses that went there. Now, not in this particular class, but Justin Smith came out of that high school.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you got sideways in those days with a Jeff City football player, you could have some issues. You know what I mean? Not this guy. He was a running back. So, but I vividly remember walking over because he kind of got to mouthing me a little bit. I don't know how, you know how seniors are. You know how high school is, right?
Oh yeah.
And I remember walking, but he didn't get out of the car. And I remember walking over to his car and looking down at him, and the sideways radio took all the fight out of me. I said, dude, what is the deal with that radio? And he goes, I mean, it's my mom's car. They gave me it. It's crooked. And I said, you know what? And now I'm sitting over there. Now, he was in a citation, right? And I'm in, I got a truck. I got a 79 Scottsdale, 354 speed glass packs, 33 1250 tires, 2 CB antennas. I had a Pioneer Super Tuner too with TSX 26 speakers. So there was a reason why he couldn't keep his girlfriend, right? And there was no reason for me to kick him while he was down. I ended up being good friends with him. Later in life, he ended up being a cop. He's still a cop. He's a sergeant. Yeah. So, but at the time, I went over there to mouth him, and the radio. I've never seen anything like it. The radio.
Listen, man, there's nothing more humbling than picking your girl up on a Friday night in high school, and you turn the radio on, and it's like Desperate and Dateless on the AM station out of Columbus. Like, hey, tell me any of these young kids got enough game that they could keep a girl interested.
That's right. They don't.
Talk radio's going on in the background.
And you know what's funny is it was a sky blue citation. I think every citation I ever stopped was that medium blue that GM had back in the 80s. But what color was yours?
Oh God, it was like mustard yellow with a brown stripe. It was like with a brown stripe.
But the whole time I was a cop and then a trooper, I never wrote a person in citation a ticket. If I stopped somebody, I let them go. That and a Chevy Love. My best friend in high school had a Chevy Love truck. You know what I'm talking about? A Love diesel,
God.
Like an '82 Love diesel thing. And if you were relegated to driving those two pieces of equipment, you got to pass.
Hey kids, there you go.
Yeah.
All the kids that are listening, drive the worst car you can get. Law enforcement might feel some sympathy for you.
So to circle back around to the Bayless, they towed us out to this wreck, and we get there, and there's a citation on its roof, and I think it was silver. It was like a light gray, and it's got Illinois license plates on it. And this is farm country, so it's picked bean. The road bed sets about 4 feet or 5 feet higher than the fields, if that makes sense to you guys out in rural America. You know what I'm talking about. And there's some grass, kind of big grassy ditches going down to flat farm fields. And what they've done, they've run off the blacktop and they flipped over and they're on their top. Now, one of them is upside down in his seatbelt, and the other one has tried to make an attempt to climb out or crawl out. And this broad at 2:00 in the afternoon. So we roll up. I throw my car in park. I've got a picture of it. Could you post stuff on the thing?
Yeah.
I'm going to send you. Remind me this week. I've got a picture of it because the town newspaper showed up and took pictures.
Okay.
And then they gave me the black and whites. They gave me the black and whites.
I'll tell you what. We'll put that on our Patreon page. That'll be a special thing for all our Patreon.
That's
members.
One of the pictures I got in my office.
All right.
So, and this is going to make me sound bad, but remember, this is 25 years ago or plus. Okay. So the guy is screaming. I can't cuss on this. This is a free one, right? I can't cuss on this. So the guy that's upside down is screaming, calling us MFers. You MFers, help me out of this car. So as I got my hat on, as I'm going down in the ditch, the passenger is halfway crawled out. I get over there and he goes, "Sir, I'm mandated by Illinois law to tell you we're HIV positive."
Holy moly. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
And when he said that, my FTO goes, "Hey, get back up here." And I went over there and he goes, "What did he just tell you?" And I said, "He told me they were mandated by Illinois law to tell us that he was HIV positive." And my FTO says, "You stay right here with me." And the guy outside, he goes, "Hey, MFers, are y'all going to help us or not?" And my FTO says, "You hear that ambulance? It's coming." Because you can hear it So anyway, the driver, the guy that was MFing us, okay, he ended up being drunk, and we gave him like his 8th or 9th DWI in a 6-month period there.
Wow.
So he's HIV positive.
He's HIV positive, and he's driving around, and I don't. The theory was that they were wanting to get arrested so he could get medical treatment. You know, he wanted to be convicted, but the problem is, especially like where I work, if you had major medical, if you didn't kill anybody, if you had major medical conditions, they'd ROR you. They'd let you go because. When I had first started, that was the big thing in the city at the jail. These girls would be, in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, and they would go down to the store and shoplift a pack of cigarettes and be in custody when the baby was born, and the county would pay for the bill.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, so they quit doing it. So what you'd have is these terminally ill or people, they don't have any health care, and that was back before it was free. President Obama made it all free now, so I guess they don't have to do that. But back in them days, so what he was doing is he was trying to get put in jail. And I guess everybody in Illinois who knew him, or that he'd had some exposure, they had crossed the bridge and come into northeast Missouri, and thought that northeast Missouri was going to put him in jail or prison to get the help that he needed.
Jeez, Al.
So of course, what happened is he got, we drew blood at the hospital with him, and then they released him immediately. The county didn't take possession of him whatsoever. But he had to come back to court, and he came back to court, and the judge, they assigned him a public defender. So we're in this old-fashioned courthouse, oak and walnut. I mean, you know how those old courthouses look.
Oh, yeah. We
got a female judge, and she basically tells these guys, she tells the driver, and this is a it's not husband and husband. It's a boyfriend and boyfriend, because this is back before they let them get married. So anyhow, he's there with the boyfriend, and he's demanding to be put in jail. And the judge says, "No, we're going to ROR you. We're going to extend you. I got you a public defender. Come back in 90 days. No, you fucking bitch. Put me in jail." And she says, "No, we're not putting you in jail." You know what I mean? So, and the whole point is he's trying to go to jail so he can get free medical.
Right.
So finally he jumps up and he starts calling the judge a effing bitch and all this other stuff. So now she's got these 2 geriatric bailiffs, right? Now I'm going to tell you, the one guy, the retired trooper, now had he been 20 years younger, he would have put a shellacking on this guy, because that's what he was known for. I mean, he was known to be borderline brutal. But they didn't have it anymore. They're in their 70s, and they puff up and they walk over there and they think they're uniform. And the first thing this guy did was shove one of them down or shove them back. So now the only people in there are these 2 bailiffs, and then me and my roommate was a trooper, and he could be a tough guy. He was an Apache pilot in the Army. He was still in the reserves at that time, and in great shape. And we grabbed this guy and introduced him to the doors that refuse to open. Okay, because the old courthouse, the courthouse in Cole County where I grew up and worked first, they were like free swinging doors, right? Well, in this county they latched, so I had to hit him 2 or 3 times, his head 2 or 3 times on that door before I realized, until somebody on the outside had to open it, realized that it was catching. And then he goes, "So you're taking me to jail?" And we took him out on the street like it would have been like a 1950s black and white film. We took him out on the street and just shoved him out because they said, "Don't bring him back. Don't arrest him." And we threw him out on the courthouse square.
Nice.
Him and the boyfriend. We just threw him out and said, "Come back in 90 days.
Justice is served.
It was like, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
It was like getting, yeah. That's old school, baby. Now I don't know, who knows what happened nowadays.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.